Now it's time to take a look at this week's NFL injury report. A lot of notable guys on this list that will certainly impact your fantasy lineups. To name a few here, Davante Adams and Devonta Smith, they've been ruled out. Sam Laporta, Jordan Love, Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, Deebo Samuel, they're all listed as questionable. So let's bring in our fantasy football expert, Heath Cummings, to take a deep dive into this list and break down what these losses will mean for our fantasy football lineups. Heath, let's start with the big news, of course, of the day. Davante Adams, he's listed as out versus the Browns. He popped up pretty surprisingly on the injury report on Thursday. What is this going to mean for the Raiders offense as a whole?
Well, it means I like the Browns defense a lot more. For the Raiders offense, listen, this is looking like a mess outside of Brock Bowers, who is a must start, no doubt about it, top 3 tight end for the Raiders. This is a pretty big boost for Jacoby Myers, but Jacoby Myers with Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell throwing him the ball is not going to move into must start territory. He does, though, move into a nice wide receiver 3 type range, and with all the wide receiver injuries you showed on that graphic, Jacoby Myers might be available on your waiver wire, would be a good guy to add if that's the case. I'm going to rank him right around wide receiver 30.
You mentioned tight end injuries. There's a ton around the league. Browns, David Njoku's out. Cardinals, Trey McBride, he's out. Lions, Sam Laporta, he's questionable. I mean, the list goes on. Heath, specifically, what's your advice for fantasy managers who have McBride and Laporta on their rosters?
Well, I mean, if you have McBride, then you're going to be like everyone else and just struggling and hoping that you get 5 points. And the answer might be the same if you have Sam Laporta. Unfortunately, if Sam Laporta played any other position, we wouldn't even be considering him starting him after 3 straight games with a 10% target share and maybe not 100%. But what we really have at the tight end position right now are 3 starts that we really want to start. Maybe 4 now that George Kittle's back. Thank goodness George Kittle's back. And then you've got this group of Kelsey, Kincaid, Mark Andrews, Sam Laporta, who have done absolutely nothing to justify being started except for Kincaid's touchdown in his most recent game. But we're going to start them anyways because there just aren't that many good options on the waiver wire. If you're desperate and you need to add somebody for Trey McBride, my favorite guy that's available in a lot of leagues right now would be Colby Parkinson. Did see a 21% target share in his first game without both Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. That could be okay. You've also got Brenton Strange, who's done a pretty good job filling in for Evan Ingram. Did score the touchdown last week, saw a decent amount of targets 2 weeks before that. There hasn't been a whole lot good going on in this Jacksonville offense, but there's always been a big tight end role in Doug Peterson's offense.
Yeah, I have Travis Kelce on my fantasy team, so I feel everyone's pain in that position. Now I want to take a look at the Houston Texans. You know, unfortunately, they might be without wide receiver Tank Dell. He was not seen at practice on Friday, and he's dealing with a chest injury. Meanwhile, running back Joe Mixon, he's questionable. He returned to practice this week. He's, of course, been dealing with that ankle injury. So what will this mean for C.J. Stroud in the Texans offense?
So I'm starting Stroud, I'm starting Nico, and Stephon Diggs has been kind of a borderline wide receiver 2 type guy. Without Tank Dell, I'm definitely starting Stephon Diggs as well. Those 3 are pretty easy. If Joe Mixon is active and we don't hear anything about him being on a pitch count, I'm starting Joe Mixon as well. Where it gets really tricky is if Mixon is out again, Cam Akers a probable start. I would put him as a low-end RB2, not somebody I feel great about, but right in that running back 24, 25-ish range. Very good flex option. Got a little bit fortunate with the receiving touchdown last week. Isn't going to be hyper efficient, but should see 15 to 20 touches. And then one last note I'll throw in. You saw Dalton Schultz on that tight end 13 through 24 range. He gets a little boost without Tank Dell. He was pretty much only good last year when one of those guys was out. Now that Dell is out, you might want to start Schultz.
All right, now moving over to the NFC East, the Eagles are in the same position. I mean, star wideout Devonta Smith, he's been ruled out. He suffered a concussion on a Monday night. While A.J. Brown, he's listed as questionable. He's missed the last 2 games, of course, with that hamstring injury. Heath, how will this loss of Smith and the potential addition of Brown really impact the Eagles?
Yeah, you really hope for the sake of Jalen Hurts that he gets A.J. Brown back, because if he doesn't, his top 3 wide receivers are going to be Jahan Dotson, Johnny Wilson, and Paris Campbell. That's not a great situation for anyone. It's also why you see Dallas Goedert at #1 in our tight end rankings. If Brown's back, you definitely start him. If Brown's out, you don't start any Eagles wide receivers. I guess Dotson would be my favorite, but I wouldn't like it at all. I'm basically just going to start Goddard. I'm going to love starting Saquon Barkley. I don't think I can get away from Jalen Hurts just because of what he brings as a rusher and the hope for a tush-push touchdown, but he's not going to rank as a top 4 quarterback like he normally does. He's outside of my top 7, and if I had Jalen Hurts and Jaden Daniels, I would start Daniels this week.
Yeah. Now, Heath, in other news, this came in, recently. Saints receiver Chris Olave, he suffered a hamstring injury at practice today. How is that going to affect fantasy managers and the rest of that Saints offense?
We hate Friday injuries because it's tough to suffer the injury on Friday and be good to go on Sunday. It does sound like he's day to day. If he's able to play, then I'm going to view him as a boom bust number 3 wide receiver. If he's out, Rashid Shaheed, who's currently a boom bust number 3 wide receiver, would move into that wide receiver 2 territory, and you maybe give a little bit of boost to the running backs in the passing game as well as to the tight ends. But you can see here we've got Shaheed right around wide receiver 30. That's factoring Chris Olave playing, so he would get a boost from that if there's no Olave. Shaheed actually the first 2 weeks of the season led this team in target share, has the ability with those downfield plays to make your day with just one play. I wouldn't mind starting him as a wide receiver 2 if there's no Olave. Even if Olave plays, I'm not going to feel great about it on Sunday.
Yeah, and he's sticking with the Saints here. Alvin Kamara was also listed as questionable. So what's your take on that?
At this point, we are still expecting Kamara to play and see his full complement of touches. He's a back that at his age is probably going to take some days off and have some limited practices throughout the season. We've not been given any real indication of reason to think that he's going to miss the game. If for some reason he does, and if you've got Kamara on your roster and you want to kind of have a backup plan, Jamal Williams would see 15 to 20 touches in this offense if Kamara was out. Make sure Jamal Williams is rostered in your league, but our expectation is that Kamara plays and you start him in your fantasy lineup.
All right, Heath. Lastly, let's take a look at quarterback Jordan Love's status. He's, of course, has been out for the past 2 weeks. He was limited at practice this week and did say that he was close to playing versus the Titans last weekend. What's the latest that you've heard on him?
I'm having a really hard time believing anything Jordan Love or Matt LaFleur says about his injury right now. They've really shown some gamesmanship over the last couple of weeks. I'm not expecting him to play at this time, which means I don't really want to start a Packers pass catcher without him. Josh Jacobs still a good number 2 running back. If Love comes back, he faces a really difficult situation. Brian Flores' defense has given up 30 points the entire season. They have more interceptions than passing touchdowns allowed, and they have 15 sacks in 3 weeks. So I don't want to start Jordan Love in his first game back against this defense, but I would boost Jaden Reed up into startable territory if Love comes back.
Well, Heath, thanks so much for your insight. Fantasy managers, best of luck to you all this weekend. It's going to be a tough one. You can catch Heath and the guys on a Fantasy Football Today podcast. This is the only podcast you'll need to win your league. Download and listen wherever you get your podcasts.